project, which is the subject of the public hearing, which is the Ginsberg institutional improvement project. Today we're holding this public hearing to allow citizens to make a statement for the record relating to the involvement of the agency with the project, the proposed project, for the benefit of Ginsberg Institutional Foods, Inc., a New York domestic corporation. The proposed project consists of the following: the acquisition of an approximately 10-acre parcel of land located on Route 66, tax map number 101.-1-56.200, in the town of Clavert, Columbia County, New York, together with 3 existing buildings containing approximately 100,000 square feet located on that piece of property. An interest in an approximately 33-acre parcel of land located also on Route 66, tax map numbers 101.-1-4 and 101.-2-3.2 in the towns of Ghent and Clavert, Columbia County, New York. The construction on the Ghent and Clavert parcel of several buildings and improvements in multiple phases over a period of years to contain an aggregate of approximately 295,000 square feet. The renovation of the existing facility, the acquisition and installation therein of certain machinery and equipment, all the foregoing to be occupied by the company and used for warehousing, refrigerator, storage, distribution, and office space as a food warehousing and distribution facility, and other directly and indirectly related uses. The idea would also grant certain financial assistance within the meaning of the general municipal law. The act with respect to the foregoing, including potential exemptions from sales and use taxes, real property taxes, real estate transfer taxes, and mortgage recording taxes, collectively financial assistance. And the lease with an obligation to purchase or sell of the project facility to the company or such other person as may be designated by the company and agreed upon by the agency. We intend to provide general information on the agency's general authority and public purpose to provide assistance to this proposed project. The comment period will then be open to receive comments from all present who wish to comment on either the proposed project or the financial assistance contemplated by the agency with respect to the proposed project. Revisions of Chapter 10030 of laws of 1969 in New York constituting Title I of Article 18A of the General Municipal Law, Chapter 24 of the Consolidated Laws of New York as amended, and Chapter 366 of the 1976 laws of the State of New York as amended, codified as Section 895L of said General Municipal Law, which is considered to be the Act, authorizing the agency to promote, develop, encourage, and assist in the acquiring, reconstructing, improving, maintaining, equipping, and furnishing of manufacturing, warehousing, research, commercial, and industrial facilities, among others. The purpose of this public hearing is pursuant to Section 859A2 of the Act. Prior to providing any financial assistance, the agency must hold a public hearing if the financial assistance will exceed $100,000. Such proposed financial assistance to be provided by the agency with respect to the proposed project may exceed $100,000. Then, prior to providing any financial assistance, the agency must hold a public hearing. After consideration of the application received from the company, the members of the agency adopted a resolution on August 19, 2014, authorizing the executive director of the agency to conduct this public hearing with respect to the project. The executive director of the agency caused notice of this public hearing to be published on September 2nd, 2014 in the Hudson Register Star, a newspaper of general circulation available to the residents of the town of Clavert and town of Ghent, Columbia County, New York. In addition, the executive director of the agency caused notice of this public hearing posted on September 2nd, 2014 on the agency's website and also on public bulletin board located at 2306 New York Route 66 in the town of Ghent, Columbia County, New York. Copies of the notice of the public hearing are on the table up here. Now, unless there's any objection, I'm going to suggest waiving the full reading of the notice of this public hearing. Instead, request that the full text of the notice be inserted into the record by the steno for the public hearing. The comments received today at this public hearing will be presented to the members of the agency at or prior to the next meeting, at which the members of the agency will consider whether to approve the undertaking of this project and the granting of any financial assistance in excess of $100,000 with respect to the project. The notice of this public hearing indicated that written comments which could be addressed to Ken Flood, the executive director of the agency. Have you received any written comments?
No. Not really.
Okay, we have not yet received any written comments. I will introduce Ted Gutterman, who is the agency's counsel, for any further comment he may have, and he will be conducting the remaining of this public hearing.
Good morning, I'm Ted Gutterman. I'm the attorney for the Columbia County Industrial Development Agency. First, I just wanted to basically make everybody aware that a full copy of the notice of this public hearing is available for anybody that wants it at the table, so that we didn't feel it was necessary to read it, because you can just pick it up and read it whenever you want, if you'd like. The operating rules. So if you wish to make a public comment, raise your hand, I'll call on you, wait to be recognized, and once recognized, please stand and state your name and address for the record, and then give your comment. When everybody's had an opportunity to speak, I'll conclude the public hearing. A record of the public hearing is being made. We have some record here, which will be available. Not only to the IDA members, but it's also available to the public. It will be a public record. The purpose of the public hearing is to solicit public comment. It's not a question and answer period. If there are questions during the course of the public hearing, I think general factual questions we might consider answering them, but we don't want to get into basically comment as to answering questions about the project in terms of whether or not somebody is for or against a particular issue. That's something that the IDA board will ultimately be considering. Really, the IDA's purpose in this particular transaction is limited. The IDA, by statute, is charged with considering offering financial assistance to projects in the county. Basically, the thought process is these are projects that are basically going to result in creating new jobs and or retaining existing jobs. And so it's important to the county and its tax base and basically employment and the various positive aspects of any project that the IDA, under the purposes of the IDA statute, can consider offering such financial assistance. And really, that's basically the purpose of the IDA. It's a limited purpose. The IDA doesn't approve the project. It doesn't approve any of the aspects of the project. The IDA's role is limited to whether or not they'll consider offering financial assistance. I would ask that when you give your comments, please be as brief as possible. If you're going to be repetitive, please be brief and be repetitive. Please be courteous to all the speakers, even if you might disagree with them. Let all the speakers speak without interrupting anybody, and just maintain a cordial atmosphere and more comments. And I think with that, we'll open the public hearing if anybody wants to speak. Public hearing, you all can speak.
Thank you. My name is John Friedman. I live in practice law in the city of Hudson, where I'm also a city councilman. On my way to my office this morning, I passed in the 3rd Ward of Hudson over 100 small businesses, each of which employ on average between 1 and 4 people. None of them I'm aware of have ever asked or received any help in this county. In terms of job creation and retention, those particular employees, some of them are distressed, would actually benefit, and those jobs that are not really at risk of being lost to this county would be more solidified. I just pointed that out. I'm going to say that in my practice, what I do is I help small and growth phase companies, finance their operations and their growth. That's what I do for a living, and I've been doing it for about 20 years. And Ginsberg's is an example of exactly what a commercial lending institution would like to see in that particular profile, if you will. This is an eminently financeable deal in the private marketplace. If a commercial bank was not willing to do this, a private debt or equity fund would certainly step up. And I work with those funds every day. And this is a relatively small deal, $11 million. I did a deal about 2 months ago for $1 million. It took 15 minutes to close, from offering to close. I don't know why. I have yet to realize in any communication from this IBA or from the company or from any third-party commentator what the compelling public purpose of the use of these funds are. I understand the compelling private purpose, but not the public purpose. And I submit to you that you need one. In fact, are required to have one. The job retention that you speak of, I believe, if you look at the intent of the drafters of the law in which the IDA operates, the state law, was to help companies get over a hump when they were having trouble, so that those jobs wouldn't be lost. Not for a private employer to threaten to leave the county, and therefore essentially hold the county hostage when there's nothing to keep employees from, or people who work in this county from being employed in other counties. In fact, your executive director lives in another county and manages to work in Columbia County. So I know it can happen. So once again, I fail to see the compelling public purpose for this expenditure and this lack of a willingness on the part of the county to increase the levy on all of the neighbors of this company to provide these funds, because those monies still have to be made up, and they will be made up by everybody else in this room and our neighbors. Without doing that, I don't see how you can necessarily move forward, at least in good faith. I'd also like to point out that on the same day that this board, most of them didn't bother to come out today to hear the public talk, on the same day that they agreed to hold this hearing, the IDA, above the signature of the executive director, sent out 2 pieces of information. One was to the IDA itself, and that was a memo that pointed out that Ginsberg's employs 254 full-time employees with 7 part-time employees. And on the same day, but doesn't discuss job creation at all, and on the same day, sent to New York State, OBA, I think it is, a letter stating that they employ 220 people. I don't think it's a material difference. And in fact, what I think is it's just a matter of arithmetic. Because if you add the 25 claim new jobs that are in that second letter to the 220, you get pretty close to the 254 plus 7 part-time. Let's call it even. What it speaks to is a lack of diligence. And I think that's what concerns most people in this county. Thank you.
Next speaker. Ma'am.
Hello, my name is Katie Cashin. I'm a resident of the town of Clogger. I'm also serving on the town board in Clogger. My questions today are solely mine and do not necessarily represent other town board members. The Ginsberg project is one of the largest business and commercial projects in our town. As many of you know, the project has been before our town's planning board and zoning board of appeals. As the town board liaison to these boards, I have attended nearly every meeting of the joint Columbia-Ghent planning boards and Clogger zoning board of appeals. By meeting jointly, our respective towns have attempted to review the project together, applying our own respective zoning laws, and coordinating the reviews so that it is done in an efficient way. It has been a good example, I believe, of how towns can and do work together. I do have a few questions about the proposed pilot for this project that I would like to ask the IDA. The first one is, why is the current pilot on the existing Ginsberg facility being extended for another 5 years? According to the most recent annual report from the Columbia County IDA, The current pilot was granted in 1998. That's 16 years ago, and it is scheduled to end this year, which is 2014. I don't understand why tax payments on the existing property should be frozen for another 5 years, extending the pilot for a total of 21 years. The town of Columbia does its best to keep taxes within the 2% tax cap, despite intense financial pressures outside our control. It does not seem fair that with this pilot extension on the current Ginsberg facility should not be subject to any small tax increases that the town may have to pass in order to balance our town's budget, keep our fund balance adequate, and stay under the 2% tax cap that everyone else has to. Secondly, I understand how the first phase of the new proposed pilot would work, thanks to information given to me by Mr. Flood, which is based on the estimated $12 million cost for the first phase. Subsequent phases are estimated, according to the information, to cost between $35 and $40 million. My question is how subsequent phases would be structured and how the 12-year pilot would work. So, for example, if phase 1 takes 3 years to complete, and the applicant is scheduled to begin paying 50% of the taxes beginning in year 7, and then the second phase of the pilot is completed, how does the math work for the second and third phase of the pilot, which would start at 0% for the first 7 years? Given that the tax roll assessments are based on the full value of the property, regardless of phase, how would the differential of the pilot phases be handled? I also would like to understand if the total pilot is for 12 years, or is it for a longer period of time due to the 3 phases of the pilot? It's not clear to me how phase 2 and 3 of the pilots can be handled mathematically. And I think it's important to have a full sense of what's being committed to by the IDA. It would be helpful to have an approximation of how this would look for all 3 phases of the pilot, and how it would be altered for possible changes in the phase 2 and 3 investment costs, and the value of the money over time. I'd like to see if that information can be provided before the IDA takes action on this. I appreciate your time to respond to these questions, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Patty from the Media, and I too have a concern about some of the transparency. I have not been to any IDA meetings, but I have been to quite a few of the CDBC meetings and read all the articles that have been written. And this morning, my understanding was that this piece of property that was sold to Ginsberg for $1 was actually inherited. And I understand that we've heard a lot from Mr. Flood that is creating no taxes, nothing has been done, no one's offered to buy it. But this morning, we pulled the deed for this piece of property, and it appears that the CDBC bought the land for $109,950,000. Now, maybe I'm mistaken with this. This is what the deed says from, let's see, I have a little bit of glasses on, but from 1997, I believe, May 2nd, 1997. So that's very concerning to me that this has not been, I have not seen this, if other people know what I'm talking about, and seen this printed somewhere, that I always understood that the CDBC inherited this land. I think I read that.
Excuse me, I apologize for interrupting, but there is an heir to the estate here, Mrs. Lillingham.
Okay. Well, anyway, this is what the deed says.
One speaker at a time, please.
So I don't really understand why we haven't been told, or why that's been part of the, I've been to many of the meetings, I've discussed this with several CDC board members that don't seem to be aware of that. And Mr. Flood's here, maybe he would answer that question, I don't know. You said you weren't going to answer questions. But I would like to know if this is correct. I think the public should know if this is correct, that actually the CDC, because I know that's our tax dollars that the CDC uses to purchase things. So if they actually purchased the land or inherited the land, and now it's being sold to Ginsberg for $1, that's really my comment and my question for now.
Yeah, the property was purchased by CDC, but I would also say that the purpose of the IDA here is limited to whether or not the IDA is going to provide financial assistance and what financial assistance. And where the property comes from is not really within the purview of the IDA board members, nor do they have any control of that. Their purpose is limited to determining what, if any, financial assistance they're going to basically agree to for this project under the specific general municipal law that allows them to do that. So that's another issue.
I
It's
understand.
not an IDA issue.
I think my point was to add on to that, they've gotten a lot of help already. And that was sort of why we're here, is to question or to comment on the more help that they're being proposed to get. So I think that's why I wanted to bring that up now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I don't think anyone here
Can
is
you
familiar.
tell us your name and
Oh, my name is Joanne Carter.
Okay.
I don't think anyone here, I know I'm not familiar with the owners of Ginsberg. Are any owners here today? And what is your name, sir?
John Bruzy,
Okay. And which owners are absent?
the others,
What are their names?
Nancy and David.
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. Who?
Nancy and David Ginsberg,
Are not present?
correct.
Okay. I know this doesn't have to do, I'm responding to this person, to Pat. I think money is money. It doesn't matter where it comes from, it's still something that pertains, it is still the same thing, no matter where it comes from. We get $50 from here, $50 from here, we have $100. I have with me today, I am tired of hearing that this property was inherited, it's been in the Register Star. I was to the CDC meeting on August 25th. Mr. Flood said this property was inherited. This property was sold for a $1. That's 3.33 cents an acre. And I have with me a building arrived with Willis. I don't know where this came from, but legally, from the very beginning, this is a falsehood. And this is, by Webster's, a lie. Thank you.
Jeff Snyder, I just have a couple of questions. How many board members are there?
What's your name?
Jeff Snyder. How many board members are there?
The CDC board members, currently there are 6 of them, although the full board would be 7, there's a vacancy.
Why aren't they here?
They're not required by statute to be here.
Well, why aren't they here?
Well, that's an argumentative question.
It's a genuine question because so far, I mean, I'm late to the game, but every process I went to, including the zoning board in Ghent last week, I mean, this is a joke. I mean, nobody seems to be taking this serious. What they're asking for, what Ginsberg wants, is outrageous. And what you guys are proposed to give them in terms of what Mr. Freeman had mentioned, in terms of all the other businesses that need assistance, it to me seems incredibly cynical. Number one, this is held at 10 o'clock on a weekday, and the board members don't even have the courtesy to be here. I mean, I think it's outrageous.
Let's have somebody who hasn't spoken yet. We'll come back to you. Yes, sir.
Sam Pratt of Yates Road in Greenport. I'm going to step out here so I don't have my back to people. I agree with some of the other commenters that we need to look at the entire picture of the package of benefits that Ginsberg has received and understand the IDA can only control its piece of it. But it certainly is accurate to say that they have received a great deal of largesse from this county, of which the IDA is just one agency. My estimate is that at minimum, the total value of that from the county and the state is at least $2 million, probably more like $3 million. Now, I bear no ill will to John Bruzy, who I've worked hard with, or Nancy David, but I do think that there's a fiduciary duty here to keep things in proportion and to be fair to all the business people and employees of this county. Ginsberg's, according to published reports, is responsible for employing in Columbia County, as opposed to its total workforce, give or take 160 or 170 people within the county, basing that on what's been reported in the register stuff and elsewhere. According to the New York State Bureau of Labor Statistics, there are 21,800 non-farm jobs currently in this county, well, as of June. So with respect, Ginsberg represents less than 1% of the labor force of this county. If Columbia County were to make handouts, every employer in the county, in the same proportion as it is doing with Ginsberg, the county and the state would have to shell out, by my estimation, well over $200 million in order to be fair. The county's not doing that. Ginsberg's is one of the few businesses that is getting this kind of package of benefits. And the real question is, why Ginsberg's? Why are they getting this special treatment? Because it is special treatment. Let's make no bones about it. Why do I say that? Well, for instance, there's a very limited number of people who are proposed for pilot plans or land giveaways or any other of these benefits. So that makes Ginsberg special treatment. Take the example of Tierra Farms, which applied to another county agency, CEDC, at about the same time that all this is being discussed. Tierra Farms is proposing to create 25 jobs, same give or take as Ginsberg's in its first phase. Tierra Farms was not given 33 acres to farm for $1. Tierra Farms was required to pay $50,000 for under 6 acres of land, half of which is wetlands. You can't farm. But still they would create 25 jobs. Not only would they pay